Um, but today is about increasing the value of your company, and I said it starts today, so it starts today, it starts now. Many times when we go into business, we start thinking about creating a valuable business at the end of the business, right? And if we start doing that, then we go through a whole bunch of torture for a period of time until we start to think about an exit strategy. And then we create a business that's valuable, that can be sold to others, and then it's not so bad. We may even decide to keep it. So today I want to talk and inspire and get some thoughts around how do we make a business more valuable today so that we can have it sellable tomorrow. So I'm going to use the term business as an asset. There's many ways that people go into business. There's many reasons to go into business. If everybody could just put the filter on for a moment saying business should be an asset today, okay? Can we say that? Business should be an asset. It should be something that is increasing in value. It should be something that's growing in value, something that's going to support me and my family through retirement, right? So if we put that for today, is that fair? Yeah? I know there's other businesses that aren't about building an asset, but today this is about building an asset. It is about creating something that's sellable, something that's valuable not just to you and your family, but valuable enough for somebody to write a check at your exit strategy. Valuable enough for them to write a check for a premium amount, something that's worth more to them than to you, and they're writing a check for you. And there's some research done which I'm going to touch base on today. There's 8 factors that play into the value of that check at the end, okay? Any questions? So a little bit more of me. I have a family of 4, 2 twins.
One set of twins.
One set of twins.
There you go.
We did survive. They are now 10 years old, so well into the fun period. Oh, the resolution kind of fuzzy there, but I do coach my son's soccer. I'm just like everybody else in the city of Edmonton. I was pretty much born and raised in Edmonton, although I did a stint up in Yellowknife. I did a stint in Phoenix, Arizona, where I did some education, which I'll touch on the business experience in a moment. I am a CPA CMA, not a traditional accountant. No, I don't do books. I don't do anything to do with books. Those that know me, I know you know me. I have nothing to do with books. I'm not qualified to actually do some of these books. I spend all my professional development hours in management, strategy, business development, and all these other facets of business. So if you need somebody that's a great bookkeeper, I know a great bookkeeper in the room right here. If you need somebody that's a great accountant, I know many great accountants, but I'm not one of them. I am a lifelong learner. I believe in, in order to keep advancing and growing and developing, I need to continue to advance and grow and develop my skills. And I believe that others should do the same. I hope to pull some people along with me. I understand not everybody comes from that school of thought, but that is my school of thought. I am a challenge seeker. I like to face challenges. I like to take challenges and attack them. And even speaking to a bunch of students today is me attacking one of my challenges. I want to help inspire some growth right from the onset of an inspiration or an idea. So that's what today's about. At my core, I want to make the world a better place for society, a better place for business owners, a better place for entrepreneurship. And hence why Cecile and Max and we talked about doing this today. A little bit on my experience. I have varied experience, a lot of Fortune 500 experience. I've actually been lucky enough to have the resources of a couple multi-billion-dollar companies in my experience. But the first example, over 12 months, it took a $16 million operation and turned into $24 million. Over 18 months, this one was really fun. This was up in Yellowknife. Took a $600,000 operation and turned it to $2.2 million inside of 20 months. So 18 months I worked there, but I think it was closer to 20 when by the time I moved back to Edmonton. So I moved up there, did it, and came back. But just to put the lens filter on for a second, a little bit more in perspective. I think that many times in business, people, we in general, operate from our own filter. We operate from our own direction. We operate from our own belief patterns. And you know, our biases, we have 180 biases as represented by the scientists. They say, hey, you know, they fight. Some of them don't say 180, some say more, some say less. But let's just say there's 180 biases. There's challenges in our decision paths, right? Challenges in us making decisions that are in our best interest because we have biases that confuse ourselves and we make decisions incorrectly sometimes. So I study a lot on that. And you know, I believe that for our best chance of success, we need to actually be able to see the challenges, see the result before we get there, right? We see the dream, but if we don't start seeing some of the other stuff, see some of the other perspectives, we start to lose out on our dream. And often today is start with the end in mind. Start with what you think you want to have in the future and build it today so that in the future it's there. And start to figure out what are some of the challenges that you're going to go through between here and there. There's a lot of research that supports if you see the challenges, you're more likely to get through the challenges. If you run into the challenges, you're more likely to retreat. And I think each one of us, especially when you start to have a team of employees helping you drive your vision, drive your mission, drive your dreams to reality, all this comes with a battery, right? Think of your cell phone battery. All this comes with a battery, and that battery starts at 100%, right? And then we go down a path, and we think, okay, we're gonna go over here, we're gonna do this, right? And we start to bring all of our employees along, we bring the team along, and we get a certain distance, and then we start to run into some challenges, some obstacles, some stuff we didn't quite see before we got there. And our batteries get consumed a bit. You know, as a business owner, we may have a little bit more resiliency. Our battery only got consumed, 15%. But sometimes our employees get consumed 25 or 50%. We retreat, and then we want to immediately go down a different path, right? We may have the capacity to do that, but our team behind us is starting to dwindle. It's starting to run out of energy, run out of the ability to jump on and believe your dream and keep going on it. So I believe that we need to find more perspective to find that result so that we're there faster. And as such, we can't do it alone, right? When we're alone, we operate on our own devices and we don't see those things. So we need partners, we need perspectives from other sources, employees' perspectives, customers' perspectives to get ourselves there. And as such, I bought the rights to something called Renaissance Executive Forums. I bought it for Alberta and Saskatchewan. They are international, they're in 11 countries, they've been doing this since 1994. They form groups, so they bring together groups of 10 folks in a room, and we help each other out. We solve each other's problems. So some people might call it a mastermind, but I think it even goes a few layers past mastermind. But let's, I'll let anybody wants to talk to me after, we'll talk about that. I want to get to the content. So we all have a dream, right? The dream might look something like this. And we start getting into the dream, and it starts to look maybe something more like this. And we're like, what happened to the dream? I can't see the future beyond here, and I got all this stuff in my way here. And then we start attending industry groups, and they say, well, the path is like this, but there's a tree there, and there's a puddle, and it's covered in snow, it's winter, maybe wait until next spring. And who's ever heard that you can't see the forest from the trees, right? You've heard that before? Well, I experience it. I see people experience it. I experience it myself. It is real in business that you get stuck and you start only seeing, and sometimes you even, my wife told me not to show the picture, you start getting stuck in the mud. You only see the mud. You no longer even see the trees, right? And we need to get back to what's that 40,000 foot view again. We need to be able to see, okay, where are we going again? Let's look at the map. Let's look at where we're trying to accomplish. And so each of us have a different dream, right? Our dream might look different, right? Typically, there's 3 different types of business owners that I see in the space. There's craftspeople. These are folks that are innately desired to create to be and to create a craft for themselves. They're typically not what I would consider business owners. They're building a business as an asset because they rarely have employees. They're usually photographers. They're usually those types of trades. There's the freedom fighters. Those are the ones that want to create a freedom for themselves and their future. They're usually about building an asset for themselves, for their family. And then there's the mountain climbers. These are the folks that want to, take down Amazon. They want to take down, you know, whoever the top dog is that they see in their eyesight. So the mountain climbers, yes, they want to build business as an asset, but they want to go there faster than humanly possible. I mean, they want to run, not walk. They're definitely a little bit higher in the risk takers. This is more around the freedom fighter folks, the folks that want to build a business as an asset. So my dream, my big, hairy, audacious goal for anybody that follows Jim Collins, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to find 500 companies and help them grow their business value, the value that they can get a check after they've sold it by $2 million each. And that, when you do the math on an accountant, so I did the math, that's a $1 billion impact into Alberta, okay? So how am I getting there? How am I coming up with $2 million each business owner? So there's a few things that I'm doing. And I'm going to use an example of Jack versus Jill. They're twins, I love twins. So Jack started a business 10 years ago. Jack, worked blood, sweat, and tears. Like, he worked hard. He was in the mud, got out. His hands were dirty, but he got out of it. And he built a $2 million business. There's $2 million in revenue. So he had customers, he had following, he had sales. He was in the industry groups. He followed industry profit margins. He was growing at 1.62% of industry. So that was the average rate for industry growth. And he was had profit margins of 10.3%. Okay, not too bad. Right on par with industry, and being right on par with industry, he would gain a multiple. This is when I use a multiple, it's the multiple of earnings before income tax and depreciation, right? So EBITDA, as accountants would know it. So he would gain a 3.5 times multiple of that business because it's perfectly average, fits average in every way. So after 10 years of work, his heart, his health, something made him have to sell his business. His family, his wife wanted, vacation time. He was able to get $750,000 for the 10 years of effort. Not bad. However, as I continue the tale, Jill, his sister, also entrepreneurial nature, was something in the family, spent 10 years building a business also, and she also went through the bumps and bruises along the way, got her hands dirty, stuck in the mud, all that stuff. And she also fought her way to $2 million in revenue. However, she participated in a few other different, she thought of things a little differently. She participated outside of the industry and found different ways to do things. And she was growing at that point at 5.1% per year growth. So game changer compared to the industry. She was in the same industry that's, for simplicity. At 1.6, she was at 5.1, and she was over double the profit margins. And these are based on studies. The studies are at the bottom. But when she built a business in a sellable fashion, so a sellable fashion that we're going to talk about in a minute, with these 8 factors, she was able to garner a 6.1 times multiple on her EBITDA. So, accountant in the room. You're an accounting student, but accounting student. What does that mean? There's a substantial difference there between creating a business as an asset and creating a business as a job, right? Jack was able to sell his business. Jill was able to sell her business, and roughly a $2 million spread between the two. So, Jill is not a superstar. Jill is not something that's out of this world that none of us in the room can't be. And she $2 extra million to her and her family. Does that make a difference to her and her family on retirement? Does it make a difference to her lifestyle after she retires? Right? Because when you sell a business, you lose your income stream. Right? You no longer make the money you were making in the business. So it has to replace that at the same time. I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but you can imagine the difference there. So I call that the ultimate freedom, the point where you can sell a business for its maximum saleability. So I study a lot. I'm a freak, I'm sorry. Business development cycle, you start from, you know, coming up with ideation, an idea, and starting to grow it and develop it. You survive. Survival is tough. This is where you're in the mud sometimes. You get to sustainably explode, and then you get to a maturity level. And the maximum scalability is to actually sell it before it starts to, before you flatten it out. When your risk appetite as a business owner no longer has you growing the business, it has you dialing back and trying to ride the business for an income stream, you're actually going to hurt your sellability, right? So I have a few, I don't know, actually I can include all the slides. This entire topic, you know, on sellability and all the 8 drivers, we can spend 36 to 48 hours on it, which we don't have that time. We have less than an hour today. So I had to paraphrase some stuff down. But at that point, if you keep the business and start to flatten out revenues and flatten out growth and no longer, you know, continue to invest the profits into growing the business value actually starts to decrease as well. And many times it decreases by equal or more than the amount that the person would have got if they just sold the business and took an after-tax cash flow at that point. So I call that the ultimate freedom. The point where you can choose to scale. Scale means grow the business, take it to the next level, expand it, increase regions, grow cities, grow product lines, all that. You could choose to sell it, take your hard efforts and put it into the bank and do something different. Spend time with nonprofits, start another business if you're a serial entrepreneur, whatever that means. You could choose to pass it down to your family, your employees, your management staff. You know, there are buyout options there. Or you could choose to chair and keep the business. Most folks do this until they have to sell it and then do that. But everybody gets to make those choices, and that's the freedom of making that choice. So that takes us to the value builder system. This is the system that we're talking about today. It's based on a statistical database of now over 40,000. I know when I gave Cecile the statistics, it was 34,000, I think, at the time. Now it's over 40,000 participating businesses in this system. And you know, it originally started back in I'm trying to remember the year now, 2008. The founder of it did a bunch of research. He was an entrepreneur. He sold the company, and he started to realize that business owners only do this one time, or most business owners. There are serial entrepreneurs that will build, sell, build, sell, build, sell, build, sell, and you know, not everybody is built for that. Most folks build a family-based business, a highly trusting family-based business, over a period of time, 10, 20 years, and then sell it, right? And when they sell it one time. So they don't know what they don't know about how to sell a business yet. So he did a bunch of research and said, what are the factors, what are the pieces of the puzzle that the business owner should know, wants to know before they get there, so they have a business that's more valuable, they can, you know, garner a bigger check at the end. So any ideas? Anybody have any ideas? What makes an EBITDA go from 3.5 to 6.1? Any ideas in the room? Anybody? What are some of the characteristics of a business that you would think that makes somebody more valuable?
So obviously the profit margins like you're talking about.
Okay.
Having like above average ones.
Above average profit
If they're
margins?
growing.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the pieces, yeah. Any other ideas? Go ahead.
Customer base or?
Customer base, really good, very insightful, yeah. Customer base is definitely one of the factors. Any other ideas?
I know the answer, so I'm not saying anything.
Typically, people instantly gravitate towards industry, size of the business, and some other factors, right? So some of the stuff that came up with is other factors. But the industry, so industry, who thinks industry makes a difference? Yes, you're not putting your hand up, yes. You're shaking your head, okay. So industry does make a difference, and how about size of business? Do you think size of business makes a difference? So if you have a $200,000 business versus a $2 million business, yes, okay. So I do have some statistics on those slides coming here. So industry does make a difference. The average multiple, like we said, was 3.6. the database adjusted in 2017 to 3.6. So the average is 3.6. You can see manufacturing garners a 4.5. So just by being in a manufacturing-based industry, you actually have a higher likelihood of getting the higher buyout with higher options for sale. Wholesale trade, professional sciences. I can send this slide out if I do have a piece of paper. If anybody wants some of this stuff, I'll send this slide out, and I'll send some videos and some other stuff that you might be interested in. Wholesale trade, scientific, technical services, information. So you get a pretty good feel of those. But I want to talk about administrative support and waste management. It's 1.8 times multiple. If you own that, do you think you have a, you know, what when you see this slide, you're like, whoa, what am I doing? Why did I pick this? Right? Well, if you're in administrative support and waste management, I have an example for you. This is Jill. Jill started a company called Ruby Receptionist. It's a call answering service that was built into an $11 million business in the administrative support realm. She actually turned down her first offer, but eventually she sold the business. So this is $11 million in revenues, not profits, but revenues. And she sold for $38.8 million. And she excelled in a few things. She definitely had a business as an asset. And she definitely had a recurring business model, which we'll talk about, a recurring revenue stream. And she had great customers and customer diversification. Bigger companies. So we had some agreement that bigger companies make a difference. On average, again, we're at 3.6. If you have a company under $1 million, you're garnering an average of 2.8. And if you have a $10 million company, you're closer to 5.9. So I do have another example. This is Rod. Sorry, example in the $2 million range. He was actually $2 million on the nose. This is Rod. He started a company called Aftermail, and it was in a time when email was out of control, right? We didn't know how to deal with our inboxes. It was back in 2004, and he sold that business. So it was a $2 million business, and he sold it for $15 million. So he easily got a strong EBITDA multiple. And not bad for owning and developing and creating a business inside of 2 years. So it was a 2-year, that's a pretty good return on investment, return on time. And the interesting piece of the story is that Rod actually ended up walking away with less than the original. He got an offer for $20 million, and he walked away from the work because it was a workout offer. Like he had to work out the last $5 million, and he chose to walk away from $5 million and start another business. He's a serial entrepreneur. He started a business that is now worth over $3 billion. It's called Xero. You know Xero? Yeah.
Oh.
The accounting, bookkeeping software for customers. Competitor with Intuit, which I know Intuit very well. But he chose to take his time and walk away from $5 million, which I know for many of us were like, what are you doing? And he turned it into $3 billion. So I think he knew what he was doing. But there's definitely some dangers to positioning yourself for a buyout and looking to maximize your buyout and having an earnout, because the earnout, most earnouts don't actually come into reality. Most earnouts, you end up losing the earnout for multiples of reasons. His reason was he chose to walk away from it, but many times it just became unfeasible. It didn't work, and the company that gave the earnout chose not to let it go through. So what are the other factors? What creates that, what garners that premium? What garners that extra, get us to 6.1% or 6.1 times multiple? So I do have an example in that space. So David took his $10 million business. It was called, it was a digital advertising agency out of Melbourne, and he sold it to another digital agency for 10 times profit. And now they've created a 200-person agency. So this was a lot around having a strategic buyer. He created a business model that was valuable to somebody else with a similar business model that they were able to put the two together and make it something that was even more valuable. And he definitely built this business as an asset. He definitely did not have, he could have walked away from the business and it continued to grow. It was definitely, I call it hub and spoke. We'll talk about that in a moment. There is a book on this. The book is a really easy read. It doesn't go into all the details of everything. It doesn't have all the database there, but it's written in a story format. It's a really easy read. It takes about 3 hours to read it. And it walks through a story as a business owner selling a business, right? So you start to see the different aspects of what goes on in somebody's mind as they start to sell a business. And from that book, and you don't need to read the book, it's not necessary, but it's just a nice, easy read. And if you're in business, I recommend it. I don't know a single business owner that's read it that doesn't recommend it. It's a great book. The Value Builder Assessment. So it ties to something called the Value Builder Assessment. So there's over 40,000 participating businesses that have completed the assessment. The assessment takes about 50 minutes online, and you get insights into your business, and you get insights as to say, how valuable is this business if I were going to need to sell it tomorrow? And then you can start to say, what are the gaps? What do I want to improve? What do I want to work on? And it gives you a score. And the average score is 59. This industry average, and this is 50, but it gives you a comparable against industry and a comparable against, against general business. And ideally we get to an 80, right? If you get to an 80, that's a very sellable business. That's where you get 6.1 times multiple on your EBITDA. So what are those factors? They're important for valuation, but they're also very important to run a business. This is a business that is enjoyable to own, not just sell, right? So I think that, I might be mentioning statistics that mean something to sale, right, when you go to sell a business, but it also means something when you own a business. And many times, if we focus, and I know you mentioned focused on revenue, if you focus on revenue, profits don't always come. If you focus on profits, revenue doesn't always come. If you focus on revenue and you focus on profits, you don't always end up with a successful, sellable business at the end. And then the last few years is like you start going through corporate transformations, and it gets bumpy along the way. I'm working with one right now that they need $2.5 million to retire, and they're at their business broker said it's worth assets only and fire sale $500,000. So they want to over the next year figure out how to make that a $2.5 million transaction. So the 8 factors, and like I said, if you put your name on the sheet, I'll make sure you get videos, because I do have a couple minute videos on each of these on my YouTube channel. It helps make it a little bit more understanding. I can only do so much justice with it here. So the first score, financial performance, I think you mentioned profitability. Do I have CPA audited financials? There's a number of pieces that kind of form to having a great financial piece of the puzzle. So one of the factors is financial performance. How well do you perform? How well is your company performing? How well is your financials comparable over the last 3 years? Are all 3 years growing? Are all 3 years sustaining profitability? Those things matter, right? When there's a business, when somebody's going to buy your business, they're going to want to know that you have a solid business that's sellable, so they can feel good about buying it. They can associate the risks of making that transaction and do that. Growth potential. Growth potential is, have you figured out how to grow, right? And not just grow a little bit, but grow a lot. Do you have a growth development engine? Do you have ways that sales is growing without you as a business owner doing the sale, right? Is it just word of mouth? Because word of mouth is not a system. Word of mouth might grow you at 1, 2, 3%. If you're growing at 15% or more per year in your last 3 years, that's where you're going to garner the highest return on your investment. Okay? Switzerland structure. So this one, much like the country Switzerland in war periods, didn't have any necessary biases or any affiliations too much with any one other country, right? They spread their eggs in multiple baskets, and in a business, the Switzerland structure, as defined by John Warlow, is for you to not be overly reliant on any one employee overly reliant on any one supplier, any one customer, right? So do you have a well-diversified business? Where's the risks, right? I know one business owner has a great business, sells to the federal government. He has 260 employees, and all they do is sell to the federal government. It's really difficult to sell a business that only has one customer, because they're one contract away from bankruptcy. Yeah. So he needs to diversify, right? Diversify his customer base. I don't know if he can get to federal government to being only 20% of his business, because he's got over, I think it was a $125 million business supporting federal government only. So he's got a lot of work to do to make it sellable. But yeah, so this isn't just your sales staff. This could be operations. This could be, do you have your processes built in a way that that the people are replaceable with the systems that are there, and somebody else can easily step in and do them? Are there redundancies in place? If you lose your key employee, if you lose your operations manager, how likely are you to continue operations, right? How at the quality and quantity and operational efficiencies that you were at before. Valuation teeter-totter. This one is really interesting to me. I'm an accountant, so this is about cash flow, right? Can you grow your business? Let's say if you're, for those that you said you have a business, if you're at 5 times revenue in the next 90 days, so you normally would write $1 million, and now you're writing $5 million. How will things work, right? So some of that's into your growth potential, but as far as cash flow, do you have the cash does your model create cash? Does it create cash in a way that you can grow without going to the bank for that $5 million sales, right? For that growth in revenues. And it's called working capital. When they're writing a check, so again, at the end of this, we've built a great business. It's worth $2.7 million. They write a check for $2.7 million, but there's also they have to write a check for the working capital in the business, right? So what's the working capital in business in order to sustain growth? And if you have to carry $1 million in working capital, they're writing a $3.7 million check. If they're writing a $3.7 million check, they might see additional risks, and they may not want to write you a check for the 2.7. They're going to want to discount that further, right? Because if your business is cash hungry, it needs cash to grow. It's not a turnkey business. Any questions about that one? Is not always apparent. Okay. Hierarchy of recurring revenue. So there's actually 9 business models around subscription based, around building a business which has a recurring revenue stream. This is not customers that come back. This is actually customers that you have an agreement with that they continue to pay you monthly, right? So you see subscription models, you see Intuit, I'm using them as an example, but Intuit, if you're an Intuit customer, you're on QuickBooks or any of their products, and you're paying a monthly subscription fee, right? So there's safety in that number when people are already pre-buying their services for next year. They're pre-buying the services that they're using on a consistent basis. And it's not just, let's go into it for a moment. It helps you sleep better at night if you have customers coming in your door already. And not just repeat customers that you think are coming back, but they're already in your revenue stream. You already know you have $1 million quarter coming. How do you know that? Because 85% of it is recurring customers, and those recurring customers have been lasting for years. Okay? So try and find there's a book called The Automatic Customer written by John Worrell also. But the automatic customer believes that every industry, no matter what industry, there's this percentage of your business that can and should be recurring, right? That you should have a subscription model of some sort that keeps that revenue going, right? Could be a maintenance contract, could be all the way over to a software as a service type of application. Could be pre-buying services years in advance. It could be a contract like cell phone contracts. There's lots of different models out there. We've only got a couple more minutes to get to questions. Monopoly control. This is, to what degree does your customers see your business as different to your competitors, right? So I know that there's no such thing as a true monopoly, so I don't know if I like the word monopoly, but it's about differentiation. It's about how do you make your business different than others. Now, I know that Nate's got some great programs around marketing, around how to differentiate your product offering. But this is critical. And once you're in business, once you're running a business, once you're growing a business, you need to continue to resurface that. You know, one thing that you know, sports teams, how it works, right? You know, you go to market, you go with something, and they can watch the videos and they can see inside of a few games, suddenly your brilliant game plan starts getting broken down. As a business, it takes a little bit longer, but we're out there in the market. And when we're out there in the market, our brilliant ideas start to get repeated, right? And our competitors start to learn about what we did. Now, it takes a little longer than a couple of months, but our differentiating factors don't stay different anymore, right? The others start to sell with those same type of factors. So we need to continue to reevaluate. I use a process that's similar to the Blue Ocean strategy process to always be creating a value curve and figuring out what pieces of those puzzle. How do you continue to retool your business in a way that you continue to stay, you know, different? Because if you don't, it won't. Competitors will copy, they will follow, they will start to repeat what you do. Customer satisfaction. This is near and dear to my heart. You know, this is one I think is mentioned over here. Satisfied customers are ones that are more likely to come back and buy again. They're more likely to recommend others. There is a measurement called the Net Promoter Score that I use. The Net Promoter Score is the one that has been statistically proven to actually mean something. Just asking if your customer's satisfied doesn't always mean much, right? And just because they come back doesn't always give you that really good feeling for if somebody's gonna write you a check. If somebody's gonna write you a check, I would recommend using the Net Promoter System as part of your process. There's many ways to do it. You can do it on your own with SurveyMonkey. You can use folks like me, and then there's the big folks that do it for banks and Intuit. But customer satisfaction. So the Net Promoter Score. This is what is the? And everybody's seen this question. It's a scale of 1 to 10. What is your likelihood to recommend my products or services to a friend or a colleague? Right? You've seen that question. You've seen it written probably hundreds of different spaces. And the reason that question is used is because it statistically means something. If they give you a 9 or 10, then 9 or 10 will give you, it's called a promoter, right? It's a net promoter. Somebody is going to promote your business. If somebody were to ask you a question, so what's the name of the business again? B&B Bookkeeping. So B&B Bookkeeping, somebody asked me, you know, what about B&B Bookkeeping? Have you heard of them? Yeah, I've heard of them. If I'm a 9 or 10, I'm like, I've heard of B&B, they're good, I recommend them, right? I may not go out there in the market and say, you gotta go and get B&B, you gotta go and get B&B. But if I get asked, I would recommend. I would say that they're pretty good. I've used them, they're good. If I have a 6 or less, I'm actually a detractor. Which means, yeah, B&B's okay. But, or, I don't know about that B&B. My experience there was so-so. Now, they're not saying terrible. The 1s and 2s might say terrible. But the 5s and 6s are still detractors. They're still detracting away from you getting that extra business. And I know you guys have a great business, so don't use this, don't take this personally.
No, good.
And the 7 and 8s don't matter. They're neither going to promote or you know, statistically they're just, you know, going to float right along, right? Sometimes they'll promote, sometimes they won't, but they're floaters. So the Net Promoter Score, simple math is add up all the 9s and 10s out of 100, right? So take it as a percentage, and subtract all the 1s through 6s, and subtract that from that total. So if you have 75% of your folks are in the 7 8s, ignore them. You have 15 folks in the Net Promoter and 10 folks in the Net Detractor. You end up with a score of 10. A growing business should have 15 or higher. That's the math, right? So 15 or higher gets you you know, something that is worth a premium for when somebody's going to write you a check. But it also will help you sleep better at night because you know the customers are happy with your business, right? What they're getting from your business. Hub and Spoke, I do have an extra slide on this. Hub and spoke is what percentage of your involvement is required to make that business grow? Can you get hit by the bus and be in the hospital for 3 months and unable to talk, and the business continues to grow without any warning? You didn't set this up. You just disappeared for 3 months. Did the business continue to survive without you? Did it thrive without you? Right? So depending on, if you have a thriving business that doesn't need the business owner anymore, now you're operating it as an asset, right? So I think that if we're inspiring the startup of a business, make sure you have this in mind. It doesn't mean that you have it figured out. It takes sometimes years to get this figured out. But have this in mind, that you need to not be the only salesperson. You need to not be the only operations person, the only doer. You need to have others that are doing those different tasks. Sales and marketing, operations, finance, you need others doing those tasks when you have a sellable business. For the maximum sale. It doesn't mean you won't be able to sell, but the maximum sellability. So the statistics average business to the scores of 80 plus, so average business is 59 and 80 plus on the scores. This is the 15-minute assessment. If you're in a startup right now and if you're dreaming, the assessment's not going to help you much, so don't worry about it. But if you have a business and you want to know what your score is at, it's pretty easy to do it. You get a score like almost instantly on my website. I'll send that as part of the links. I hope I remember all this. I'll send that as part of the links. And it's free. It doesn't cost me anything. I pay for a subscription. I'm on a I pay for a subscription to have this in unlimited use. So I don't need to worry about who's using it. It's on my website. Go ahead. It's free. But it garners a 71%. So it's 71% growth in the ability or the EBITDA multiple. At the same time, as you're doing this, as you're building a business that is growing, it's growing at 15% per year. To get yourself over here, you have a growing business with all these pieces of the puzzle all ironed out. All the cogs are turning each other, and you're able to watch it, right? You're able to stand back and say, this business is fully functioning. You have a 71% higher EBITDA, but you also likely have more profitability. Also, like my Jack versus Jill example, you'll likely have more profits that are shared in that 6.1 times multiple, which turns into 2.7. Here's an example. I'll skip it because I want to get to questions. Stephanie, I do want to talk about Stephanie for one moment. So Stephanie, sorry, that came up on my screen. There we go. Stephanie started a company called Breedlove and Associates. It was a way to pay nannies, right? She saw a need. She was a parent. Her and her husband had kids, and paying a nanny was a pain. So they started a company around paying a nanny. Big payroll companies didn't want to deal with it. Pay one employee, pay a nanny. Nobody wanted to do that market. So she took and built a niche around that market. It was a $9 million company, and she actually turned away an offer for $40 million because it was worth more to her than her family than $40 million, right? Her relative comfort that her business was growing and it was profitable and that she had recurring subscription-based business was out of this world. She turned away a $40 million check. I said, and didn't even reply with a rebuttal saying, okay, we'll take something else. They said, no, that's nowhere near our ask of what we want, so we'll just ignore it. We'll just say no. That same company did come back to her and sold it. She ended up selling after a later negotiation for $54 million, which I guess was enough. She did build a very profitable business just to get behind the scenes of it. But she had to make a decision, and strategic decisions are not always easy. Right? She had to make a decision. Should I sell more stuff to parents? Because she was already selling stuff to parents. So what else could she sell? She could sell the monitors, she could sell schools, she could sell all types of supplies. Like she could sell stuff to parents, right? That's an option. Or she had to make another choice, which was to be to sell or to find more parents with nannies. She chose this path. And that, I think, is a big part of the reason why she was able to garner such a multiple and such success with her sale, is that she built a really strong, big database that other people could sell stuff to parents with. So she had a very, basically a strategic buyer wanted her business because she had, what was it again? She had a $9 million company. So she had $9 million of parents, and she wasn't selling anything else to them except nanny services, or nanny payroll services. So there was a ton of opportunity for somebody else to come in and buy that company. So a very strategic decision. She probably had an advisory board and all that. So you said to stop around 10:02. I'm a couple minutes early, but any questions? Anything that's coming into your thoughts right now? Go around the room. Give me a second. No? Okay, well, I'm gonna stick around. If you want to have one-on-one with me, that's great. If you want me to email you, I'm not gonna try to sell you. If you want to be sold, you'll contact me. I'll email you a link to your 8 videos, and part of my subscription does get me access to a weekly audio file that's an interview with a business owner that sold their business. So you'll get into that. If you don't want that, there's always a unsubscribe at the bottom. You can always unsubscribe if you've seen enough of it when you're done. So.
Can you guys join me in thanking Jeff for coming today?
Like I said, it doesn't cost me anything until I exceed 2,000, which I'm doing, so.
This is gonna have a ripple effect, because I'm gonna
What's
send,
that?
I'm gonna send this on to someone who's much more entrepreneurial than I am. So
What do you do?